Hello, hello, hello. Apologies for the delay. I will get ready to get started in a couple minutes. You guys hear that? I apologize. Got a little video playing. I'm going to cut that off here in a second. All right. Oh, that was a song from an album that I'll be talking about later on. So, hello and welcome again, y'all. This is the My Wrong Opinion podcast yet again. We're back into a little bit more of a traditional format, and I mean traditional, meaning that it's not the soapbox day. I'll just say that. It's going to be more of what it was initially and more of what I intended it to be. So there's going to be a few topics I'm going to be talking about. There's a lot to talk about today. Um, a lot of stuff has happened, obviously, that I don't have to cover. I'm choosing to cover it, but still, it's kind of a bit of a difficult situation to make sure that I'm also timely with this. But I mean, you guys have been rocking with me so far for this, so I don't really feel the need to limit my time on that. But digressing, but beside the point. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the My Wrong Opinion podcast yet again. My name is Damon Bennett. I am your host and your main speaker for today. Like I said, going to be talking about a lot of different stuff today. Not really much to get into with regards to personal life stuff. I mean, fun fact: had a really entertaining conversation with a friend of mine, and even more than entertaining, it was enlightening. And I think during this season, this COVID season in general, I think it's important to make sure that we engage people who we might not have otherwise have engaged with. Because now, I mean, at the end of the day, we have even less excuse now to not be in contact. And I think that also being unafraid to admit that you don't know enough. And me reaching out to my brother, John Jones, or John, I think John KK Jones, I think he's how he's preferred to be called, but either way, I had a really good conversation with him, and it was just really eye opening because even though I know that there's a part of me that wants to do for the community, I also don't want to be ignorant about what I'm going to be doing it with. And regardless of religious views, like he's a good friend of mine. He openly has said on countless occasions that he does not believe in Christianity nor what it stands for, and I respect that. But that also doesn't mean we can't work together to create a better situation for our community and to work towards a common goal. Because at the end of the day, we both want the same thing. We want solidarity for our people. We want the oppression that has been at our doorstep every single day to end, and we want us to be able to thrive and flourish. Um, Much like how any other people group would want that same thing. So I was able to seek him out. Obviously, he had a lot more. He had a good number of resources that he shared with me that I wasn't otherwise aware of. He even shared with me and dropped with me some knowledge that I wasn't even considering at the time. Just about racial institution and how things have came about and stuff like that. He offered me he pointed me to a few books. I'm gonna get out to them as soon as I can afford them and start looking into them a little bit more. But yeah, I really do thank you for that, John. That was a really good conversation, and I hope to have similar ones like that in the future. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the topics for today. So first things up, John Boyega has made himself very, I guess you'd say, not known. He hasn't made himself known, but he's made himself very vocal with regards to these racial issues that have been going on in the country lately. And for those of you who don't know who John Boyega is, he's Finn from the Star Wars movies. But if you were following his career prior to that, you would also know him from another movie called Attack the Block. I think that was one of his first movies. I actually checked that out a while back. Like when I first found out that Star Wars was casting him and people were apparently excited for him, I was like, what's the big deal about this John Boyega cat? So I looked up his IMDb, saw that Attack the Block was one of the first movies he was on. I watched it, and I was like, oh, he's a really good actor. And then sure enough, when the movies came along, I was like, ooh, he's a really good actor. And it just kind of snowballed from there. But John Boyega has been vocal about the things that have been going on, specifically with injustice and racial tensions, not only in our country but also in his. Because as far as I understand, he's from the UK, and he has been willing to put himself on basically on the chopping block. Because I mean, Hollywood for the most part doesn't really like the idea of a politically charged individual pretty much running their show. They want a status quo as much as they want anything else. And although there's a lot of actors and people like that who are speaking out, it is also just as possible for you to blackball yourself. And John Boyega has taken a significant risk with that by being very, very, very outspoken about the racial inequalities that are happening in this world. And I respect and commend him for that. But it's also interesting, like Jordan Peele, and if you guys followed his Twitter feed, he was or there was something to be said about how John Boyega might potentially lose future prospects in the movie industry. He might potentially lose out on a couple of roles just because of his stance. And Jordan Peele felt free to reply to that tweet saying, "Don't worry, John, we got you." And I like that. Honestly, I do. I like that when we stand up for each other, that it's known and it's seen. And I love the fact that Jordan Peele is willing to make sure that his brother is looked out for. Because again, for us, at times it can feel easy, especially in the media industry, which is, I mean, pretty much white owned and white led. It's very difficult at times for us to feel like we can have a voice in these situations simply because of the fact of job security. And John Boyega took that bold risk, and Jordan Peele was there to help him. And I think that for us, even in entertainment in the movie industry, I feel like just because you're an actor or just because you're an artist doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to say things like what John is saying. And I look, we've had controversial artists say stuff for the sake of controversy all the time, and they say stuff and they don't mean it, or they'll say stuff just to get a rise because they got a rollout that they're trying to get done, an album thing going on, whatever, whatever. But it's good to see that there's a man such as John, and I'm sure there's others like him, that are willing to kind of put themselves out there and kind of put themselves in a position where they could potentially lose it all, quote unquote, lose it all. But I find it even more reassuring that our black brothers and sisters out there, specifically Jordan Peele, who we've known since Get Out, has been for the cause. And even before that, I mean, I don't know him that well, but I got the vibe from that he was willing to kind of reach that helping hand out as well. Because that's what I was talking about in the last podcast about like black taking care of black, like we taking care of our own. Like that's a prime example of that. To where if white Hollywood pushes you away, Jordan Peele's gonna come right around the woodwork. Nope, worry, I got you, I got you. And that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of progress, that's the kind of change that I think is going to be sustainable for us in the future. So that's the mark of what I was talking about. That next up is COVID and protests. So according to some recent research and recent data, there have been COVID cases that have been increasing mostly in the Midwest and I believe the South, the Midwest and Southern areas, amidst all the protests and things that are going on. Uh, I'm not going to say that it's because of the protesting, because let's be real and be honest, people have not been respecting the COVID quarantine since it started. Like, people have been talking about 6 foot social distancing and all this other stuff, but I've seen videos of people going to pool parties. I mean, I've been there. I've been to social functions. Um, or have I been to? Have I? I don't remember. I might have. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't even think I remember. But I've been to like visiting other people's houses. Like I've done that during this time, and that's partially because, as far as I know, nobody that I know has been affected with COVID. But that, I guess, overall, it kind of bleeds into this whole idea of like social responsibility, but also and also activism. Like where do those get hand in hand? Because on one hand, you got people that are fighting a cause that is a just cause and it should be fought, and then on the other hand, you have the potential of putting people at risk of getting this disease that we apparently are not able to adequately handle. Even though I don't fully believe that, I just think that I think that in this time and age, it's interesting how the timing of this just makes this weird. Like there are people right now that probably aren't going out to protest because of the COVID quarantine, and it kind of poses that question of like which is more important. And I feel like obviously at the end of the day, you'll probably choose your personal well being over anything else. But I don't know. I don't know. Would people in the history books later on in these years look at this as a brave display of defiance against the regime that has sought oppression, or would they see it as foolishness? I'm sure there are some news articles right now already being written about how these COVID protesters are completely disregarding the government state sanctions that have been put on us to make sure that we reduce that bell curve, but at the same time are doing nothing about the situations. This almost bleeds directly into the conversation I've had before about the whole looting thing. If we had if we had been dealing with this properly from Jump Street, you wouldn't have protests. You wouldn't even have to worry about people getting infected with COVID-19. You wouldn't have to worry about that if, like I said before, you guys were doing your jobs. Like, if you were just doing your jobs, it would have been that simple, but it wasn't. And there was a lot of you that, unfortunately, have to deal with the drawback of this situation. Now, for me personally, it creates an interesting tension because on one hand, I want this to continue because I don't want our voices to be silenced, and I want us to finally get some momentum going with regards to change and building awareness, which has happened because of these protests, which I see as a beautiful thing. But on the other hand, I also don't want to put anybody at risk of getting hurt, or by hurt I mean ill or negatively affected, which is a possibility. And that, again, that's just a tough one. That's a tough one, and I think that depending on where you are, I think obviously is the ultimate influence in that. Like obviously, if you're in New York and New Jersey, which apparently some of their cases have been getting reduced over time, which has been good. But if you're like New York and New Jersey, the places that initially got hit hard with this COVID pandemic, I would understand why you'd want to take a little bit more precaution and not go out and beat the street. You know what I mean? But in an area like ours, which is the Midwest, where at the time there wasn't that many cases and people weren't really dying from it at the rate in which people on the Eastern Seaboard were, it was completely understandable to go out and protest because up until that point, you didn't really have anybody around you that was dealing with it. But now, apparently, according to recent studies or recent research, as of June 5th, I'll say that, it appears to have gone down in areas like New York and New Jersey, but it is went up and apparently is aggressively spreading in some parts of the Southwest in our area. So, I mean, you could, like I said, you could potentially attribute that to the protests. You could also attribute that to just typical public irresponsibility, just people not taking it seriously in general, which I can say honestly I've been guilty of in certain situations. I mean, I still wear the masks. I still make sure I hand sanitize, all that good stuff. I want to make sure that at least at anything else, at the bare minimum, I'm doing my part to at least contribute to this pandemic. I'm staying inside more often. I mean, I'm a natural shut-in anyway, so it didn't really affect me all that much on that regard. But being also a little bit more intentional about making sure that if I'm going somewhere, I'm going somewhere. Like I'm not lazing around. Although today I was out. What was that? Where was I at? I was out by a park talking to the friend I was talking about before. But again, that was for me was a purpose. Might not justify it, but still, it's whatever. But yeah, I think that I think honestly we're probably going to see a continuing increase in COVID cases for two reasons. One, because of what I just said before, people not taking it seriously, but also two, just the natural like flow of the disease. It makes sense that it would go from east to west. But then, I mean, again, I don't have all the information on that. As far as I know, the last time I checked, there were already cases in the West, so it might just be rising upward. But I figured the spread of this was going to happen, especially when we had the opportunity to dip it in the bud when it started, and we didn't. So that was kind of part of our country's fault, not really taking the steps necessary as it should have to make sure we wouldn't be in this position in the first place. But it also has, we as citizens also have somewhat of a responsibility to make sure that we're not contributing to that either. I don't think either side is particularly right in this situation completely. I think both sides have a lot to fault, especially when you got people protesting about that type of stuff. And that's half of what the protests were initially before the whole George Floyd situation. People were beating the street and screaming and yelling and all this other stuff about the fact that they got to wear a mask in Walmart, but really weren't. It almost, again, I'm spending a lot of time on this topic, I guess just because there's a lot to talk about, but it also kind of speaks to the hypocrisy of people who want to look at these protests for George Floyd and say that these are ridiculous and unreasonable, but at the same time are looking across the table and seeing people that are literally like not rioting, but dang near close to it over the fact that they got to wear masks. Like, I wish I had one on me. I keep it in the car, but a mask. Like that, cats literally like standing, and I said this before. They're standing on Washington. They're standing in front of the Capitol building, wherever they're at, like fully armed weapons in their hands and like bulletproof vests over the fact that they got to wear masks. But my black people can, my people can die, and people will be like, "Why are you protesting?" It's crazy. It's crazy, and it doesn't make sense. But it does make sense when you think about the fact that we live in a racist country. But at the risk of turning this into a another soapbox moment, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. If you guys want to know how I feel about the whole George Floyd situation and stuff that's been going on, there's two videos prior to this. One was the podcast second episode, and the other one was just a rant that I went on about how I felt, just kind of the raw emotion of it all. So you can check those two things out. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. All right. So next up, apparently the NBA is in danger of apparently needing money. Like I didn't even think that was possible. But again, according to sources, during this whole pandemic, as you all may or may not know, sports hasn't really been happening all like that. The MMA has still been going on. I think UFC specifically with crowdless events, which is interesting. But like the NBA, I know for at a certain point in time, just kind of shut down. It all was considering doing basketball without fans. And I know LeBron had a lot to say about that, but yeah, there's a lot of people that are kind of sitting at the table like, yo, we kind of need to open up soon because if not, apparently we're going to run out of money. What was to say? Adam Silver, during a conference call with apparently numerous NBA players, was basically putting it up like, yo, they're at risk, apparently, according to what they're telling us, they're at risk of losing $1 billion if they don't have their playoff games for TV. That's apparently what we're finding out, is that it's the league is in a bind and could potentially lose out on billions, specifically $1 billion, but we can make the argument for billions of dollars simply because they didn't post their playoff game, like they don't have playoff games, which is crazy to me. I mean, it makes sense, obviously, when you think about like viewership, ad revenue, and all the stuff that comes with that. But I have a hard time believing that the NBA is sweating right now. Like, they're a multi-billion-dollar industry with half of their players like dang we're up to $100 million athletes. Some of them possibly even more than that when you think about the totality of their contracts. I don't think they're sweating for cash. Like, I don't think that's part of the reason that they're worried. But apparently that's what it is. Yeah, they're still committing to try and put the games back in the arenas and stuff, and they want to do that even though the pandemic has not gone over. Apparently Silver has been in conversations with Oklahoma City's Thunder guard Chris Paul. He's for the Thunder now. I'm off already. I didn't even know that. I'm tripping. You guys are literally seeing a live reaction of me because I unfortunately I didn't read through this story all the way, so I'm kind of freestyling with you as I talk. But it's crazy. He's a part of the Thunder. Good luck, buddy. But he's also the president of the Players Union, and apparently they have close ties to Robert A. Iger, who's the executive chairman of Disney, which apparently is the NBA's largest partner. Disney's taking over. It's a regime. It is a regime, and it's coming through fast because they're putting their hands in a lot of pots. I mean, I respect the hustle, but we're about to have a Disney monopoly soon if this continues on. But yeah, basically they're trying to push to get the games back going because they don't want to lose out on money, even though it comes at the risk of potentially putting people in danger of COVID. They don't want to do that. They want that bottom. So, again, even in the midst of a pandemic, people are still worried about their bottom lines. Again, with what has been going on in this country, it's crazy how people still got their hands out. Cats still got their hands out wanting some money when some people don't even have jobs. Even though apparently, according to what I've been looking up, the job market isn't as impacted as we thought it was, which is good. But it's also kind of difficult to be okay with what they're trying to do right now. I feel like the NBA, and I could be wrong, but I feel like the NBA doesn't really need the money right now. I'm sure it'd be nice to have it. I'm sure there's a lot of contracts they would have to fulfill on the back end of that. I'm sure, but losing out on one season, I don't think it's going to hurt them. But I mean, hey, they want that money. Some people are calling it like an NBA reboot. Like, it almost feels like, which honestly it's understandable because with the introduction of COVID and what it's brought to us as a nation, it feels like we have 2 years in one. It's just been insane how quickly life has changed for a lot of us. But yeah, that's kind of what they're going through. Which, more power to them. Hopefully they kind of go the safer route, kind of like how the UFC did. I would like that, but I know that there are some basketball players that were vehemently opposed to that idea, and I think one of them was LeBron James. But yeah, it's an interesting time for sure. Interesting time for sure. Next up is the NFL. Speaking of the NBA, the NFL apparently is now initiating an apology for not listening um, to to the players that were talking about racial injustice in this country. And Roger Goodell got on. I don't know if it was live TV or not, but he posted a video talking about how we were wrong for not listening to the players as they were fighting for racial equality and encouraged them to peacefully protest. Um, the NFL is a sorry industry, period. For as much as I love football, these guys, this good old boys club that the NFL is, it's just, I don't even, like, now you want to say you're sorry. I mean, I get it. You'd rather say sorry now than never. I get that. But, I mean, Cap still ain't got a job. I think they're talking about giving him a job now, but it's crazy. It's crazy the impact that this George Floyd specifically instance had. And I wouldn't put it all on George Floyd's death. I don't think that his alone is the reason why people are creating such a rebound from all this. But I think he's just kind of like that straw that broke the camel's back type of situation, especially with the way that it happened. I think it just kind of sparked a lot of things inside of us. Especially, there were a lot of sports athletes really coming out and being vocal about the situation as well, which I appreciate. Drew Brees was vocal in the wrong ways, which again, it speaks to the point I said before in the previous podcast. We don't need to hear y'all's opinions right now, and Drew Brees is a prime example why. And he had to come out and send out an apology as well. I mean, we can only speculate how genuine it was, but that's beside the point. But NFL, man, they were this. I mean, Kaepernick has been speaking about this since 2016, and players and coaches and commissioners and owners alike all have looked at Cap and said, "Are you crazy?" They've been looking at these protests, they've been looking at these issues, and they've just been turning a blind eye to it. But now they want to turn around, double back, and try and make it seem like, yo, we're sorry, we apologize. Look, apologies are good. They're fine. And I appreciate the apology, and I don't accept it just yet. I know that sounds weird. I don't accept it just yet. Like, until I see something happen, until I see some type of tangible change as a result of this apology, until I see some type of reform, maybe, about how the NFL does business with its players and how it does business with specifically black players, and also how it would do business with coaches, potentially good coaches that are kind of been getting blackballed because of their skin. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more of that, and me not seeing that just shows me how sorry you really aren't. So I need to see that happen a little bit more. I mean, shoot, my boy Patrick Mahomes even came out the woodwork and started saying some stuff, which I appreciate. Uh, he's a new kid on the block, but he got a big enough clout to be able to say that type of stuff, so I respect that. Apparently, he issued apology or condolences to the families of those that were lost and admitted they were wrong for not listening. And hopefully, he means what he says. Hopefully, this isn't just a ploy just to get the media off their back. Hopefully, this isn't their. I mean, it is. It probably is. Which, again, if it is, I respect that. But it's probably their attempt to kind of prevent it being them next. Because at first it's the police, and then it's like, ooh, they're kind of getting heavy right now. Let's let's try and make ourselves look less racist, so that we don't lose as much money as the NBA will apparently. Which again, I respect that hustle. I respect that hustle, and if anything else, these protests are kind of forcing or putting owners and people like this, executives in positions where they have to address it. Like they can't deny it anymore. They can't continue to turn a blind eye to it. They can't ignore it. They can't pretend like it doesn't exist. They have to do something. They have to say something. And a lot of companies have. Ben and Jerry's apparently has been going hard in the paint, which I admire and I respect for an industry just to be that vocal about that. I question the validity of what they're saying. I question the sincerity of it. But, I mean, they're they're losing some people as a result of it, and they're clapping back, at least on Twitter. And so I love that. But yeah, so that's kind of my spiel on that, and it kind of speaks to the greater reality. It was over. The greater reality. That was my daughter, in case y'all were wondering. She made some really good brownies earlier too. Yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, but yeah, it just kind of speaks. This is kind of again, it kind of bleeds a little bit into a grander thing where it's like white people can apologize all they want. Like Democrats, senators, lobbyists, legislators, they all can get on their knees, wear a stole, and pretend like they're part for the cause and take a knee as much as they want to. But until I start seeing some legislation, until I start seeing some type of tangible, and it needs to be tangible, change, something that manifests into some form of, like I say, legislative action, some type of political reform, some type of systematic reformatting of the way things are going now, it's just lip service to me. Like I love the idea of it, but some of these guys are going too hard, and it's nobody's asking for that. It's the same thing like when it's hard to put it. I'm trying to find a good analogy, but it's like you're doing everything but actually solving the problem. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it's great that you're kneeling. It's great that you're like pretending to care. It's great that you're wearing the stole. I mean, the stole thing is a little bit that now we know you're just playing the game. Like at that point, like nobody's fooled by that, and people are. And then anyway, but it's great that you're taking a knee. It's great that you're saying Black Lives Matter. It's great that you're saying a lot of stuff. It's great that you're saying it. But much like in our scriptures, when it says, "Do not just be hearers of the word, be doers of the word," I need to see your words come to action. I need to see you do something about it. And until I see you actually do something, apart from just a public form of apology, I'm not really buying it. And it's the same thing with the NFL. You can say you're sorry all you want, but if we go right back to the status quo come September, then I know that your apology was worthless. It was worthless because again, apologies are great, but repentance is more so necessary in this season than anything else. For those of you who don't know what repentance is, it is a conscious effort to steer away from the path that you were originally on. It means literally to turn around. So unless I see you actually repent, until I see you actually change some of these racial structures that you created, NFL, I have a hard time really believing that what you say is worth it. Like you guys have been getting exposed on your racism for years, so you got to do some work to change that for me. And it's not going to be a 1 year thing. And again, this topic just kind of just leads into multiple topics. White people and people who own industries that have oppressed us. 1 day is not good enough, and I hope you realize that. Like your apology will only go so far as your actions have let you. Like if you're gone, if a week from now, and the dust is settled, and you go right back to where you were, you just wasted your time. You wasted your time. You wasted our time. Like there was your apology was disingenuous and foolish to even try and assume that it was going to do anything. Saying you're sorry isn't enough. And I hope people realize that at this point. And I hope we as black people understand that as well. Saying you're sorry, when white people tell you they're sorry, you can say, "I appreciate your apology," but that's not enough. Something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. And if there are white people out there that are taking ownership of the systematic oppression in this country, I thank you. I thank you. You're part of the solution. You're helping. Taking ownership is one of the first steps in actually reconciling. So, like, I appreciate that. But let's not stop there. And I don't think we can afford to stop there. And I think that once we start pushing a little bit further and start going a little bit beyond what people may have expected, I think we'll start seeing some people's true colors really start to show. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see who was really about this and who just wanted to feel good on Twitter. I think we'll see that. I genuinely feel that way. I feel like half the people, and I know that's crazy, and I shouldn't be so jaded. I want to be optimistic, but I'm 95% sure that half the people that are a part of these protests now won't be a part of them a month from now. When the rubber really starts hitting that road and people really start getting inconvenienced, we'll start figuring out who's really for this cause and who isn't. Dare I say, it's possible that half the people that were protesting will be some of the first people again to speak out against it the next time it comes around. And again, I hope that's not the case, because again, this George Floyd situation is very unique, and it's not unique, but it's it's a catalyst. I'll say that it's a catalyst, and not to say that the other of our brothers and sisters that have passed are not, but George Floyd was kind of that, like I said before, that last moment, and people at that point were like, "Okay, I literally can't do this anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I was tired of it from Trayvon. I'm tired of it now. It's done." And now you're seeing people blow up, like even me, blow up over these issues. And I think it's important, and I think it's good, and I think that even though it may not mean anything a month or two from now, it's good to at least see some racist white people have to try and apologize to us. The apology, though, again, don't mean nothing to me, but it's a nice gesture. I'll give you that. It was a nice gesture, but it's just a gesture, and until it becomes an action, it's worthless to me. All right, so that's my little spiel on that. What's up next? Oh, this one's gonna be fun. This one is going to be fun. So Sony is currently in a lawsuit situation. I don't know if it got resolved yet, but Sony is getting sued by Australia. So let me try. Let me find it. Yeah, here it is. All right. So they failed because they failed to give their customers refunds for the games that they bought. I think it was during digital sale. Sony Europe has been fined $3.5 million because the refund policy apparently was not. It was a false. It has been ordered to pay this amount in penalties for making false and misleading representations regarding the Australian consumer laws. So, for those of you who aren't very much aware of game industry stuff and how this stuff works, Australia is a very weird country when it comes to these things. It's a weird spot, honestly. Like their language for how they consume the materials, like certain games that they ban, which it doesn't make sense why they ban them. Certain games that just don't even make it across the border. Um, just their overall stance on video games, period, and how their people as a people can consume them. It's always been iffy, and now, I mean, they're at this point just trying to get a quick check out these cats. There were games that were being sold that were faulty, or a game specifically. I'm not sure what the game is, but they were refused refunds apparently because the game was purchased digitally and they had bought it for longer than 14 days. Which, if anybody else who knows refund policies are basically what is the quickest way that we as a company can make it seem like we care, but at the same time not give the money back. Refund policies are a way to make sure that they don't get their money back, and they're only giving their money back in the extreme situations in which it's possible. Which again, if I was a multi-billion-dollar industry, who as that I don't know if Sony's got $1 billion, but if I'm like a multi-million-dollar industry and I'm at risk of being sued out of the wazoo for anything that comes out, because you got to think about it from the top-down view. PlayStation has hundreds of thousands of games out with any number of content material in it that could be deemed controversial, that could be deemed like damaging, anything like that. Like they can't police everything, and so putting themselves at a position to potentially get a class action lawsuit at that, is something they're trying to avoid, which is what most companies are doing. Most of their policies and procedures are really just to prevent themselves from getting sued. It's not really for any benefit of anybody else except for their own personal interests. Half the time, it's not even beneficial for themselves. But that's beside the point. So yeah. But apparently, these policies, these stipulations that they have, do not line up with the consumer laws in Australia. So they filed a suit. They went to court, and the refund would have to be issued. So basically, they got their money. They got their money, and the refund will be coming. So people will be getting their money soon and short after, which is crazy. Which is crazy. Which again, that's why I say Australia. Again, it's such an interesting. It's always an interesting dynamic when it comes to video games because on one hand, their consumer laws and the ban list that they have for certain video games just doesn't seem to make sense. But apparently, in this situation, it profited them. So there you go. There you go. And if I was Sony, I would tread real softly with dealing business with them in the future because that's crazy. That's crazy. But I mean, Sony also has got to pony up to the plate and say, "Yo, we can't mislead you guys. You got to take ownership of that. If you're a company and you put out a bad product, you got to own up to that." Which again, it's kind of like it's that not capitalism. I don't think that's the right word for it, but it's whatever it is that leads a company to put the consumer at fault for buying one of their faulty products. That's basically what it boils down to. If you're a company and you put out a product, someone put money into that product, they wanted to purchase it and consume it, and upon consumption, it was not what it was promised to be, or it was a faulty product at that, and it didn't even perform the basic functions of what you were looking for. Um, you as a company have to take ownership of that. Like, I don't really have much sympathy for Sony, even though it's interesting how Australia just got the bag like that. But you got to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to be a fair and reasonable company. Like, you can't put your people out here on blast like that, because it's that type of practice that'll make people not want to trust you in the future. And trust, consumer trust for any company is important. Because if I feel like I can't trust you, I'm not buying anything from you. That's why I didn't buy an Xbox One. I didn't buy an Xbox One, even though I had an Xbox 360, because their Connect system was faulty. And their DRM thing, that whole crap that went on with that, the whole blocking used game thing. Although I think they doubled back and took that away. I hope they did. But that initial step that they took in that direction, that completely anti-consumer direction, I was like, no, I'm not rocking with you. I'm not rocking with you. And I got to see a lot happen come this time around when the Xbox, what's the next one that comes out? Xbox Series X? They got crappy names. When their next system comes out, I got to see some something that can make me trust them again. I do, because at this point I don't at all. At all. So yeah, they got sued. I don't feel bad for them for it. They should have. They need to be more accommodating in these type of situations, and I do say they need to. I know it's bold to say to a multi-million-dollar company, but if you want people to continue to consume your product, you can't continually screw them out of money. And honestly, PlayStation honestly as a whole has been pretty decent to its consumer base. Like, they haven't really screwed people out of much. This is the first time I'm seeing or hearing about that situation. But again, they can't, like, Sony's got to take ownership of that. Like, yo, we messed up. We gave you a faulty product. We have to take ownership of that. Here's your money back. That whole, sorry, yo, it's been 14 days. You can't it's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And you can't use a refund policy as a get out of jail free card. And that's why I'm glad that the Australian government kind of put their foot down and said, no, you give them their money back. Because again, like, you could, like, where at that point can a consumer do? Like, if the consumer buys a product that's supposed to be good and it falls apart, and you're telling me that I can't get it back, even though it's your fault that it's faulty in the first place. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's yeah. So that's what they get. That's what they get. This podcast makes me sound like I'm so anti-disestablishment, which a part of me is, but like, I'm okay with industry. I'm okay with the market. I'm okay with capitalism. I'm okay with it. I think that the people that practice it on the grander scale, for the most part, are pretty soulless. I think that some of the people that benefit from the system have been using it as a means of exploitation. I believe that. But I also believe that capitalism can help. It can help. And it does help in some situations, especially in this country. For those of you who are trying to get up and get on, unless you're black. So that is my stance on that. Moving on to Breonna Taylor. I forgot to put the text up, but Breonna Taylor her birthday was on June 6th, I believe. And I believe it was on a Friday. Ooh, it might not be June 6th. Oh, I gotta look that up. But she recently had her birthday, and she would have been 27 as of today. Which again, for those of you who aren't aware of the Breonna Taylor situation, she was killed in her home by police officers as she was sleeping. The police apparently had thought that the house that was there was being used to sell drugs, which later on was proven that it wasn't. According to police reports, they had announced their presence and they didn't. They did not announce that it was the police. And even if they did, they said apparently that they had done it a few times, which then gave them probable cause to breach and raid, even though the people that were in the house were asleep. They did it at night, in the middle of the night, which again, it's like you do this stuff, and I get probably the reason why they did it is because more often than not, closer to midnight is probably when the assailant will be home. But it just doesn't, it looks suspicious from the jump. Like you're in the dead of night, you're walking up to someone's house without even full confirmation that they're even doing anything illegal, and then they go in, they and then they shoot her. They shoot her, and apparently the story is that Breonna's, I think it was her boyfriend or husband, grabbed a gun and shot first, which is understandable because if you're waking up in the middle of the night and someone's bursting into your house, like you're gonna feel some type, like I would feel some type of way, regardless if it's the police or not. If you show up to my house unannounced, you kick down the door and you got your gun in my face, I'm gonna be wanting to shoot something back at you. Like that's just how it is. And but yeah, so they shot, they fired, they continued to fire, they fired for a while, and Breonna Taylor died basically in her sleep, and that was her story. And it's moments like those, again, like when white people say, if you had just did what you were supposed to do, you wouldn't be dead. How, in that situation, is Breonna Taylor going to be, like, what could she possibly have done apart from astrally project herself out of her body as she was sleeping to tell the cops not to kill them? Like, what else is there to be said? What else can be done? We're not even safe in our own homes. And this speaks to, again, another situation that happened. I'm forgetting the names. But there, like I talked about it last time. There was a black, I think it was a black man. He was in his apartment, and the cop kicked down the door and shot him for some, just because she thought that he broke into her apartment, even though she couldn't unlock the door with her own keys. She thought that he broke in and killed him, and it was his own apartment. Yo, there's stories like that, and when you talk about the whole, like, what is the problem with race in America, blah blah blah, like, it's moments like these that we talk about that you guys continually ignore. It's these moments that we bring up, like, yo, what about these people? And you're like, nah, those are just bad eggs. Bad eggs. There's no such thing as bad eggs when they all smell bad. It's a bad farm. The farm sucks. Like, if you got nothing but bad egg, if you own a chicken coop and every third egg you have is bad, you're not doing your job. You're just not doing your job. You're doing your job for the first two eggs, but that third egg, you're not doing nothing for. And so it's just. But yeah, on that particular Friday of that week, I gotta be sure I know what her birthday is. I'm gonna look that up as we're talking. But her birthday passed, and the protesters in New York specifically were celebrating her birthday for her, and I think that was awesome. And I do remember a story about how Breonna Taylor's mom was just speaking out and saying things like, "I'm happy I'm not in this alone," which again is important. That's what protests again are important. They may not do much on the sustainable change things, but they do a lot to raise awareness, and they also do a lot to promote. They help people kind of come together. Excuse me, for similar causes, similar situations. I just, I just think it's really good. That's what I'm saying. I think it's really good that these types of things are happening, and like I said, they need to happen. They need to happen more often. And again, we're going into that whole the coronavirus thing, the whole COVID thing. Like, is this a good thing to do too? Because they were out there protesting, and on top of that, they sung they sung the Stevie Wonder "Happy Birthday" too, which I really enjoyed. I like that. But that was nice. That was nice. We gotta make sure that the people who passed are remembered, because it was through their unfortunate and unnecessary sacrifice that we're able to stand in these meetings, hallways, and city hall discussions and be able to say and speak out against what has been causing these deaths in the first place. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Breonna Taylor, for your sacrifice. Thank you. And it should not have happened. It should not have happened. And hopefully, moving forward, it never will. All right, so next up, Joe Biden. Republicans were apparently heated about. I was going to talk about this in the previous pod, but I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. But apparently, it was. Republicans, I think, in the House of Representatives were absolutely livid about the idea of mail ballots, like ballots via mail, because of, I guess, I wasn't sure what the problem was with it. I think it was more so just about maybe misrepresentation, possibly. I don't know, but they were upset against it for a reason. And apparently, it was proven true because Joe Biden won the last few delegates needed to clinch the Democratic nomination for president through those mail ballots. I mean, you do what you gotta do, and apparently, whatever they were trying to push in the House didn't get passed because it ended up happening, and there were like 7 states that basically pushed in Joe Biden's favor that kind of helped him. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a huge increase in vote by mail ballots, driven in large part by the coronavirus pandemic, which again I think is what they were reasoning for in the first place, because people don't have the ability. We don't want to put people in positions where they might be at risk. Blah 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 blah. So let's just people have vote by mail. They were still counting ballots, but apparently they don't hold a contest in which the person with the most votes wins. It's basically they split them up proportionally based on their share of the vote, both statewide and in congressional districts. But ultimately, my boy Biden got what he needed in order to clinch. Now, anything could happen, but he basically clinched the Democratic nomination. So it's going to be Biden versus Trump again. So not again, but it's going to be. And I'm not a Democrat. Let me just say that off the bat. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not real. I don't think that I'm not a Republican. Um, but the Democrats really don't. They really don't know what they're doing. Like, I guess like maybe you thought that Obama's secondhand man was the slam dunk, but bro, again, it's almost like the Donald Trump situation. It's like, bro, have you heard this dude talk? Like, have you heard the stuff that comes out of this cat's mouth? My boy was bold enough to speak. I think he was talking Charlemagne. I could be wrong. My boy Biden said, look, if you've got the nerve to vote for Trump instead of me, you're not black. Those are the words that came out of Joe Biden's mouth. Now, look, again, I don't hate Joe. I think that he's like one of those people that is really out of touch with the culture, but wants to be a part of the culture, if that makes any sense. Like he's that old guy that will use the word lit. You know what I mean? Like he'll say something. He seems like a guy that would say that and genuinely mean it, but everybody else in the room is kind of looking at him like, bro, just don't do that to yourself. And I think Joe's that exact same way. He might be a racist too. I'm not putting it. I'm not putting it. How's the word for it? I'm putting that up against anybody that's in office at this point. Like I have no reason to believe otherwise. I know that sounds crazy. I know it's not fair to do to somebody that I've never met before. But it's hard for me not to believe he might be racist. I'm just saying that. I'm gonna keep it at that. But again, I could be wrong. It's possible. I don't want to automatically accuse a white person in office as racist. I don't. Which is not fair to Joe. I'm just saying that with some of the stuff that came out of his mouth, I think if anything, he might have racist statements and thoughts and just not realize how racist they are. It might be that too. Like he's just blissfully unaware of how he comes across. He kind of reminds me of what was his name? That's a good character. Is it? If you ever watched Community, and it was the old guy at the community college, his character. I think that's kind of who Joe Biden is. He's not. I guess maliciously racist. He's just kind of like genuinely racist. I'm not excusing it, but I think that's kind of how it comes off as. And if he's not racist, he's definitely kind of out of touch. I'll definitely say he's out of touch. At the least, he's out of touch. But he won via mail. And again, y'all, please feel free to fact check all of this. All right, because again, this is freestyle news today. Freestyle news. I pulled the sources and I looked through some of them, but some of these ones, again, like I said earlier, I wasn't looking through all of them the way that I should have been. But I am without having you hear a whole bunch of blank pauses. I'm trying to read as I talk. But ultimately, Joe Biden has kind of cinched the thing, and it kind of leads me into the next topic of discussion. Who's going to win between Biden and Trump? I'm going to say Trump again. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see Trump not making office again, especially if someone like Biden is the one running against him. And I guess that's kind of, again, what I was speaking to again about the Democratic Party. I don't know what they're doing. Like, if this is their idea of trying to take back the White House, they're doing a poor job of it. I have a hard time believing that there is not one single capable candidate to lead this country well. There is no way. There's no way with all the people that are in D.C., with all the people that are in the White House, Congress, senators, all these other people. How is it possible that you guys keep throwing out just trash? Like, I mean, same real talk from Obama on. Like, y'all have been dropping the ball. Dropping the ball. Republicans did it with Mitt Romney. They did it with, what was that other dude's name? McCain. John freaking McCain. Oh my gosh, that dude. Oh my gosh. But Mitt Romney, again, that was another one. That dude was, ugh. I don't even know what to say to that. But anyway. But now it just seems like the Democrats are taking their turn. It's almost like we're doing a trade. But even then, even with that, Republicans still give us Trump. Like, yo, Trump was your best guy? He really was your best guy? He must have been, apparently, because America loved him. Which speaks to me again about America in general. And again, I'm getting off topic here, but it's almost for a point. Like, how can you, as a person, look at the stuff that has come out of our president's mouth and still say things like he has a high sense of character, he's a great person, he has such a wonderful, I guess, manners, whatever we want to use. Like, a person with integrity who stands up and stands out against. Like, you guys are brainwashed too, and I don't think you realize that. Like, you guys swear that you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. That just because we're in a quote-unquote left-leaning society now, that the leftists have won the culture war, that for some reason, you guys are the ones that are really secretly woke, that are looking things beyond what they are, and the leftist is lying to you, and the right side is the right side. They're the only ones to know the truth. The conservatives are the ones who really know what's going on, and everybody else is just making it up. Emotionalism, anecdotal records, non-statistics, blah, 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 blah. What you don't realize is that these guys have been making you drink that Kool-Aid raw dog for at least 12 years. Because you can look at a dude like Trump, look at his character qualities, and still say to yourself, this guy's a good president. That's crazy. Now, I respect him. Ben Shapiro is kind of one of those people for me that I'm like, I like a lot of some of the stuff that he says. There are some things where he just flat out misses the mark for me. But his stance on Trump, at least I think it was him, that I agree with. It's like, Trump wasn't the best for us. I mean, you can argue policy, whatever. I'm talking just strictly character stance. Like, from a character perspective, I wouldn't trust him. Like, I wouldn't trust somebody like Trump with anything, let alone my country. And when I see and hear things like he was mocking I think he was mocking a disabled war veteran, and then on one of his things, he and this could just be a political slam, but he was out. It could be mudslinging. It could be possible that it wasn't the context, but he went out at one of his rallies and was imitating. He was saying, "I can't breathe." And not even like, I can't breathe, like in support of. He was like, oh, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Like, he was coming off like that. And y'all, even if that was out of context, there are plenty of cases in context where Trump has said numerous things that have called into question his character. And there are people on the Republican side that often just brush past it or will speak like in favor of it. Like, at least I'm glad he's being upfront and he's being real and he's not letting these Democrats manipulate his personality, and like, y'all, you're defending a fool. You're defending a fool who doesn't know what he's doing in office, was surprised himself that he won the election, and now is scrambling to figure out what to do with this country that he inherited. He's going to run again, and he's going to try to win it because he's that type of guy, but he does not know what he's doing. And anybody else who's looking and seeing his presidential campaign, not campaign, his presidency right now can see that. He does not know what he's doing. You can see it in his eyes, you can see it in his face, you can see it when he's talking to reporters. He is flustered. He's been flustered since day one. You saw it at his inauguration. I think it was his inauguration when he was sitting across from Obama. You saw it. He was like, oh snap, I really gotta lead this thing. like I actually won. I'm telling you, I promise you, Trump ran on a water cooler bet, and he basically has got to make good on it now. He said to his friends, you know what, I bet I can run for office and they'll let me win. I don't even think Trump planned on winning. I'll still say that. I don't think he knew he was going to win. And then when he started winning, you started hearing him feel himself a little bit more like, yeah. Let me go ahead and start talking some more stuff. But then when he became president, now he don't want to hear nothing. He don't want to say no criticism. And he's saying a whole bunch of trash. He's just, for whatever you can say about Obama, for whatever you can say about him, at least you can say that he did not act like this. At least he didn't act like this. At least he wasn't coming off in this way. At least he was. At least you could look at him and be like, yeah, he seems like a decent human being. Like, at least that. Like, at least you can take that into account. At least you don't have to mansplain his behavior. You could say all the things that he did politically were off, and you used to have some cases with some of his stuff, but at least you could say his character was intact, at least on the surface level. Trump ain't even hiding that. He's a jerk. He's a flat-out jerk. He's a jerk and a racist. He is a racist. He's a racist. And he's got poor character quality, and he does not have integrity. I don't know why people keep saying that he has integrity. He does not have integrity. This man does not have integrity. He does not have integrity. You can see it clearly on his face that he doesn't have it. Name one thing he's owned up to since he's been in office. Name one thing he's owned up to. Name one thing where he has apologized for the way he's come across. I'm saying that genuinely. Show that to me, because I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I'm glad to take back what I said. But I'm pretty sure that up until this point, he's not only not apologized for the stuff that came out of his mouth, he's doubled down on a lot of this stuff. And unfortunately, I don't see much changing with Biden either. I see Biden doing the exact same thing. The exact same thing. The exact same thing. I don't see a difference. It's like two guys, I feel like they're the exact same person. To an extent. Like if Biden ran Trump Enterprises before he became president, I don't think you'd see much of a difference. But that's my eye test thing. You know what I mean? Like I've never met these people in a room. I don't know what they look like. All I go by is what they present, and what they present isn't good. Like Trump's PR people need to get it in gear. Like shift it into third. Like not even shift it into third, because you're going uphill, baby, and that sixth gear is chugging. Like, because you guys are doing what you like. It's yeah. Just independent of anything else. When I look at Trump's character, I don't see a president. I just don't see a person I want to get behind. I don't see a man that I want to follow. I just don't. I just don't. And I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for him at all. I don't like him as a person. I didn't like Hillary either. I'll be honest with you. I mean, again, it's the same thing. Like, yo, just come out with better candidates. Just come out with better candidates, and we won't have these situations. How do you have over 300 people in that building and not one person that's capable of leading this country? There's no way. There's no way. We either need to do that or we need to recruit. Like, we need to start going on some recruiting trails, start looking up some scout tapes and trying to find some, like, aldermans or state local representatives that are actually doing their job and doing it well. Like, we need to start looking around, try and find people that can run this country well. People at this point, forget being a lobbyist, forget being a senator, forget being a representative. Just find a person that has the capacity to lead well and lead the country well, that has some idea of what they're doing and knows who to bring in his corner for the areas that he doesn't. Because that's what you guys were saying. Oh, Trump's going to bring in a lot of people. Do you guys realize the fact that you even said that, you admit that he wasn't a good president? Like some of you guys that were trying to say, oh well, he'll just bring a whole bunch of people in his cabinet that'll know what they're doing, so that we don't have to worry about that. But well, why'd you vote for him? Why? If you know for a fact this dude has no idea what he's doing, why vote for him? Why would you believe half the promises that he made? Why would you think that he would fall through on any of the stuff that he's claimed? His history is a prime indication that his promises don't always pan out. His companies have failed. His businesses have gone bankrupt. He's done that multiple times. And I'm sure he's made plenty of promises to his shareholders and people that own his company. Like, yeah, you don't have to worry about it. We're all going to fall. We're all going to be okay. He did that with his businesses. Like, and if I'm wrong, give me some information to prove me otherwise. But this guy's tripping. He's tripping and y'all letting him trip. And you're not even, like, again, just accept the fact that you let somebody in office that was inept. He's inept. He's an idiot when it comes to this stuff. And some of you guys, again, were trying to say, well, he's good at running businesses, so he should be able to run a country. But don't realize that this cat ran businesses into the ground. Like, he's not good at what he does. I mean, he made a lot of money. I mean, let me take that back. He was successful to a degree. You had to be able to, like, do as much as you've done. But I guess the point, again, to what I was saying earlier, if you have to try and, like, convince yourself that he'll be a good candidate because he'll surround himself with people that will actually do his job for him, just admit that you knew off jump that he wasn't going to be good at his job. Like, he wasn't going to be good at his job. And you don't have to be a senator. You don't have to be, like, a member of the House or anything like that, or a congressman, to be able to be good at running a country. Like, you don't have to. You just have to have good leadership qualities. You have to have some knowledge of what you're doing, and you got to be able to pick up a really good team, because Trump's team is garbage. His team is garbage. And if anybody here thinks that they're good, please show me examples of that happening, because I don't see it. I see a cabinet that sees fit to cut funding to education to make up for this COVID deficit than it does anything. Like, and it might just be a state level thing. But, and this is a tangent too, so just forgive me for that. But how is it that when we're in financial crisis, the first budget that we want to cut is education? Why is that the first thing that's got to go? It's already been, like, it's already been gutted enough. Like, we're already at the bare bones of what we got now. And now we're going to talk about cut. Like, teachers got laid off during COVID, and that just blows me. Like, of all things to cut out, you're cutting out education, which again tells me what America is prioritizing right now. They're not prioritizing the people. They're not prioritizing the people. Like, they're killing me with this stuff. They're killing me with the idea that, oh, we want people to grow and prosper and thrive, but you're cutting off education. You're cutting off education, and if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure they were planning on cutting out medical expenses next. But you know what hasn't even been touched? Military funding. Like, our defense spending is still at an all-time high. That's the one. And the police force funding has been at an all-time high. Those are the two things that we have not cut funding on, period. But we'll cut down education. We'll cut down medical expenses. We'll cut down a whole bunch of other stuff. But man, we better not lose that army. Which, again, I get. Honestly, though, I say that, but I get it. I get it. You got to make sure that people don't step into your house and take your stuff. I get it. But, man, it's just crazy. There's got to be a better way to ship the money around. I'm sorry? No. I mean, you're good as long as you don't. You want to say hi?
No, I have to make dinner.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, you can go ahead. You ain't gonna mess me up. My daughter's making dinner for us today. You sure you want to say hi to them?
No, I look bad.
Oh, yeah. It's funny.
Is that YouTube?
Yeah. YouTube. I'm on live YouTube.
Oh, so this isn't gonna be saved.
No, this will be recorded. Yeah, I'm posting it on there.
Oh, then no, I don't want to be saved.
Okay. All right, but yeah, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's just that idea. Like, if you really cared about us, why are you cutting education? Why are you cutting education? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, beside the point. We got off on a tangent here. That's fine. Gonna move on to the next point. Silicon Valley. So there has been an incentive to feed the hungry, and it's out in the Silicon Valley. For those of you who don't know, that's in California. Is an up-and-coming sous chef that was used to cooking a lot of expensive meals in restaurants, has now been dedicating a lot of his time to cooking free food. And he has been feeding the hungry. And he's been feeding them, I think, at a rate of about 2,000 free meals a night, which is crazy. I wish I could look more into how that was possible, but basically, his efforts were engineered by a local Boys and Girls Club chapter, and they basically just created one of the biggest takeout operations in the Bay Area, and they're doing it all for free. They're doing what they can to help people out, and I appreciate that. The sous chef, I think it's Andres Pantoja, I think is his name, or Andres Pantoja. He was the person who kind of started this whole thing, and he's doing it, and he's doing it well. Call it tech to table, but he's doing it well. And these are the type of things that I want to make sure that we see. Like, there are people out there that are still doing good things, and this is an example of that. And shout out to the Boys and Girls Club for helping this man out with his desire to feed people who can't feed themselves, especially those who are kind of damaged right now from the COVID situation. Thank you for supporting and encouraging and helping. And again, help me find more information if there is any more to find on this. But I just found this to be a nice little story to share with y'all. Just a little bit more about how we can kind of do our best to help each other out. So next up, the RZA. The RZA. So RZA has recently posted or has released a video called "Be Like Water," inspired by Bruce Lee's recent documentary that came out, which I didn't even know he had a documentary. Oh, sorry. Sorry, excuse me. I didn't even know he had a documentary, but it came out. It's called The Undefeated. But he basically has a song and video called "Be Like Water." I watched the video. It is visually really good. Lyrically, not really rocking with it. And I like RZA. I like the Wu-Tang Collective as a whole, but in this one, it felt like he phoned it in. It felt like it sounded like he phoned it in. It sounded like he was kind of out of touch a little bit. Just out of touch a little bit. Like he wasn't finding the pocket. Like you could feel the age a little bit. But the song itself, again, was decent. But it was for the Undefeated premiere for the I'm off. The documentary is called Be Water. My fault. Be Water. Undefeated is an ESPN thing. That's my fault. It was an ESPN thing. They're the ones who are releasing RZA's video, and RZA's video is for promotion of the documentary for Bruce Lee called Be Water. So that's kind of what that's going on. So that's a little bit of what's going on a little bit out there in the hip hop world. But and it got released on June 7th at 9. So if any of y'all are wondering where it was at, it was on there. I'm sure it's probably going to be released later on streaming services. I hope so, because I would love to see that documentary as well. All right, next up. So Cinemark is opening up its location, and it's going to be doing it in a few phases. And they're starting it on, I think it's June 19th. June 19th. Where's that? I think it said June 19th. Yeah. June 19th. They're doing it in 4 phases. The first phase is basically their employees are required to wear face masks into the studios so that they're keeping their employees healthy and away from the risk of being infected. But of course, they're saying that it depends on the continuing positive movement rated to the decline of COVID in certain areas. But they're optimistic basically about their chances of doing that, which is, I guess, a good thing. And not we're in a weird situation with this whole COVID thing, because we know we should be taking it seriously. We know we should be doing the proper steps to make sure that we get out of this okay. but there's also that same pressure to like release people back into the way things were. But the main function of that, for like the main reasoning behind that, for capitalism, like, it's for a economic purpose. Like, we want people to come out and see our movies, even though we're in a national pandemic. Like, that's crazy. It's crazy. But again, if it's taken care of properly and people are doing the necessary precautions, and we start seeing the decline, I guess it's okay to start lifting off a couple of things. But I don't know. I feel like there's a part of me even still that feels like a lot of the stuff that they're letting go of is just too soon. It just feels like it's too soon. It's like someone who just gets done being sick and then they immediately go outside and start playing. Like, you got to take a couple of days off because you're going to run the risk of getting sick again. And I feel like we as a country are kind of doing that right now. We're not even done being sick. Like, we're still sick. It's just that we're not showing as many symptoms, which I don't know, I guess. And I guess it's different depending on the region of the country you're in. Like, for example, Montana. I know Montana ain't sweating this COVID thing at all. Ain't nobody out there worried about COVID right now. Mostly because the next nearest person to them is 25 miles away, but that's beside the point. So, it's just interesting. But yeah, for those of you who are wondering about when am I going to see my movies, June 19th, I think, is when they're going to start doing it. It might vary from state to state, but I think that's kind of the overall drive, at least with Cinemark. I don't know what the other studios are doing. So, the next topic I wanted to talk about today is Avatar: The Last Airbender an anime? Is it an anime? And I think it would appear as if the answer would obviously be yes, but I've actually heard some pushback from this because I've always been under the impression that it was. I've always treated it that way. It has a similar artistic style to most animes that I've watched. It reminds me of, it takes some similar beats from some other animes that I've known. The idea of a chosen one, the idea of an avatar, blah, 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 person who's powerful, who's able to overcome his own, what's the word for it? His own shortcomings to be able to become the hero that he was destined to be, like all that stuff. Like, I've seen that. It has an anime vibe to it. It has an anime aesthetic that I'm familiar with. But for some reason, some people don't think it is. And I think mostly just because of the fact that it was mostly a Nickelodeon product. I think it's the reason why they don't consider it that. But I don't think that making she's wrapping up brownies and foil. So, but yeah, I don't think that the format itself lends itself to be discredited as an anime. I think that if you take away the fact, like, if it wasn't on Nickelodeon, if it was like on Netflix or something like that, or if like the first way we experienced Avatar: The Last Airbender was through something like Cartoon Network, like maybe during Toonami or something. Although it definitely wouldn't be on Toonami. But if it was on like a format like that, I think people would be more receptive to it being anime. But I think just because of the fact that it's more American based, they want to more so call it a cartoon, which I understand. But I personally consider it anime only because of those factors that I was talking about before. Mostly the aesthetic. That's the main reason why I say that. It just reminds me a lot of anime. And if I put an anime, just a regular traditional anime next to Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm going to see a lot of similarities there. And again, it's a well-written show. And it's a well-written show with a good cast of characters. And there's a lot of stuff in it. There's layers to it. There's messages behind it. Much like how anime does it. I mean, you got a lot of cartoons. Cartoons will do stuff like that nowadays. But they won't take it to the level that Avatar: The Last Airbender did. They won't take it to the level that they did, and they did it well. So yeah, that's my stance. That's why I think that it's a good anime, and a good one at that. That's why I think it's anime. But if you disagree, feel free to disagree. All right, next up, movie reviews. So there's a couple movies that I watched over the course of this break. One in particular was a newer movie that came out, and another one was like a cult classic type. I'm going to be talking about the cult classic first, and then I'm going to be talking about the newer movie later. She's crawling on the floor. That's hilarious. Um, but yeah, first one is Boondock Saints. This is a movie I watched, and this movie, I could see why they call it a cult classic. This movie is really good. I really like this movie, and the reasons why I like it are because of one, you can tell that the people who made it put a lot of time, effort, and energy into it. You could the budget showed. You could tell that the budget it wasn't a multi-million-dollar. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't how would I say this? It wasn't like Lord of the Rings level budget. It was clearly like a passion project, but it was a really good passion project. The characters themselves were good. Willem Dafoe was in this, and I did not expect him to be in this, and I also did not expect him to take the turn that he did in this movie. But you could tell, even from the character, like from Willem Dafoe to Norman Reedus to I can't remember the other guy's name right now off the top of my head. Sean Patrick Flannery, I think it's Flannery. Sean Patrick Flannery. You could just tell they were just having fun with the movie. You could just tell it was one of those movies that is like, it has some depth to it, it has some layer to it, it has some heart to it, but it's fun. And you could tell that the director and whoever was a part of it, you could tell that they were enjoying themselves. Now, I'm sure there was a lot of stresses that came with the movie. I'm sure there were a lot of things that could probably hinder them in certain spots. They had to cut some corners, but you could tell that they put some good effort into this. And so I like the movie. It's an older movie. And for those who don't know what the premise is, it's about two characters who basically are kind of like get backers to a degree. They're pretty well trained. I wouldn't call them assassins, but they're pretty well trained gunmen who kind of protect their little area. It's an Irish populated area. I think it's in New York. And there were some mob bosses and some mafia that were trying to, you know what I'm saying, muscle in, and they weren't having that. And it just kind of goes from there. And it's just interesting how the characters kind of take the paths that they take. Like, again, Willem Dafoe's character, if it wasn't for the other two, he stole the show. Like, his character, the way that he portrayed him, and even the transition from where he was to how he ended, it was amazing. It was amazing. For some of you guys, it's going to come as a shock to you, and you're not going to be comfortable with it, and I completely understand that. But for me personally, I enjoyed it. There was good action in the movie as well. Some of the dialogue was a little bit interesting. It wasn't as I guess as I don't say polished, but it wasn't as potent as it probably could have been. And there was like one moment in particular in this movie that I was like, that is bullcrap. That would not have happened in real life. Even though technically, honestly, realistically, you got to suspend your disbelief a little bit with movies like these. But in that particular scene, where they were in a gunfight, and I was like, there's no way. There's just no way. Like, how did you get out of that? Like, how? How? But to be fair, to its credit, that was the only time I really saw that happen. There was another part at the end of the movie closer to it, but it just seems like that. Like, there seems like that in movies in general. I'll be like, whatever. But it's a movie for movie's sake, and it's like they get lucky sometimes, and then to a degree, you gotta kind of get lucky to do the stuff that you're doing. But overall, I would say it was a good movie. It was pretty short. It was pretty narrow. It was pretty quick to the point. I don't think it was longer than 2 hours the last time I think it was around 2 hours when I watched it. Good movie, good ending. I like the ending. You could feel the theme in there. The theme of looking out for your own and caring for your own, and what it means to really look out for your fellow man. And you can find good people anywhere, even in the midst of something like the crime mafia or the crime boss, the crime wave. You can find people that you want to look out for and defend, and that's what I liked about it. That's what I liked about it. So that was my Boondock Saints review. Good movie. Check it out if you haven't already. Just be prepared. I'll just say that. Be prepared for a couple parts. The next movie is called Extraction. It's a movie by Chris Hemsworth, it was Chris Hemsworth, I think it's his name. Thor, basically. Thor is in a movie, a new movie, and he's playing a mercenary who's on a rescue mission, and that's pretty much the whole premise of the movie. I again really like this movie. It was weak from a character standpoint. I mean, for the most part, most of the characters were pretty one dimensional. But again, to an extent, and it doesn't excuse it, but it's I could tell the difference now. Like the purpose of it was the story. It wasn't necessarily for the characters. It wasn't a character driven plot. It was a story driven plot, and the characters were there to fit and suit an end. The characters that we follow, Chris Hemsworth, I can't remember the name of the character himself, but his character and and the boy that he is trying to rescue. Like you get a chance to kind of really connect with them, and it was just a really good time. It was a really good time to see it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what it was standing for. What it was. Oh, hold on a second. Come on, move it over real fast. I realized that there was a lot of sizzling, so I'll take it over. But yeah, there was a lot of good moments in there, and even though it was mostly an action flick, which is what I appreciated about it. It was an action flick, and it wasn't hiding the fact that it was an action flick. It wanted to stay that way. It was like, look, yo, we're not trying to give you the next, whatever high artsy type movie. We're gonna give you an action flick with characters that you want to root for, people that you want to see succeed, and there's good guys, there's bad guys. Even though it does a couple of things to kind of muddy those waters a little bit. But the narrative itself was very straightforward, to the point. The action was awesome. That's one of the things I liked about it. It didn't do the whole jump cam thing. Because I know, like action movies nowadays, whether for budgets or whatever, they think that for some reason, jump cutting a lot in the midst of a fight creates tension. And I like how there are action movies that are kind of learning from those mistakes and saying, no, people want to see what is actually going on. People actually want to see characters getting bodied. They want to see the full totality of that. They don't want to see them, like, I don't want to have to like strain my eyes to make out what is happening in front of me. And so for that movie specifically, that's the reason why I liked it. Again, the ending was satisfying, kind of. it's kind of cliffhangery, but the story overall, the idea of what it means to I mean, you can kind of guess the beats, but it's like he's trying to save this kid. This kid is a part of a crime family, and the movie actually takes time to kind of flesh that out a little bit, like the implications of what it means to be a family member who is connected to somebody who is notorious in your country, like a person who has enemies, a person who has rivals, and it doesn't just sugarcoat, it doesn't just gloss over that. It takes some good time to actually flesh that out a little bit, and I enjoy that. It didn't take this too far away from the action. There wasn't much of a lull. The breaks that happened in between action scenes were good. There was one really funny fight scene. It was funny. But there were characters there that were good characters. So overall, good movie. I enjoyed it. Yeah, we're cutting into time here. This is the longest it's ever been. I'm going to try and hurry this up. I guess yeah, so I'm going to finish up with these last two, and then we'll kind of go from there. Okay, so next up is Alfredo by Freddie Gibbs. This is an album review of his album in particular. I actually was not a big fan of Freddie Gibbs, only because I never really listened to his music all like that. I didn't really start listening to Freddie Gibbs until Bandana came out with him and Madlib. And the only reason why I even listened to him and Madlib together was because I'm a Madlib fan. Like, I like Madlib, and I like Madlib because of Mad Villainy. Mad Villainy was kind of what put me on the Madlib tip. So when I found out that Freddie Gibbs was working with him, I was like, oh, all right, let's see what Bandana's got. And I listened to Bandana. Love the album. And so I figured I'd give Freddie Gibbs another shot with Alfredo. Didn't disappoint. I don't think it was. I mean, in some cases, you could say it was probably. I don't think it was that much better than Bandana, though. I think if anything, they're probably like neck and neck. Which again, it makes sense because he was working with a different. And I think part of it is also because he was working with a different producer. He was working with Alchemist, is the artist he was working with this one. Which I think you can sense it. Obviously, you can say it. But Freddie is still Freddie. Like, I love his rapping style. I love his flow. I love his lyrics. I love the way that he kind of he still manages to keep it like almost down to earth, but at the same time not. Like he's braggadocious, but at the same time he's not. It's weird. It's weird to put into words exactly the persona he presents. But from the way that he went about, even with his visuals, like his music videos that he posts out, like he's you could tell he's a very humorous individual. He's a creative guy, and I just like I like guys like that. I like guys that don't really take themselves that seriously, but take themselves serious. It's hard to describe, but it's like I like the dudes that aren't afraid to just be themselves at the risk of how people might perceive it, and that's what I like about Freddie Gibbs. He's consistent. He's one of those artists that I would look forward to his next project because I know he's going to give me a quality product. And Alfredo didn't disappoint in this regard. He had some really good songs on there. Let me try to tell y'all right off the bat some of my favorite ones from that album. One of my favorite Alfredo songs. I love Scotty Beam. That was one of my favorite songs on the album, Scotty Beam. Him and Rick Ross killed it. It was that one, 1985. I liked Frank Lucas too, with Benny the Butcher. I wasn't familiar with Benny the Butcher before, but I am now. And something to rap about with him and Tyler. It was okay. It was an okay song. I gotta listen to it again. I only listened to it once, but it didn't seem like Tyler was really trying all that hard on that one. I'm judging that basically simply off the flow alone. I wasn't basing that off the lyrics themselves, which again I gotta re-listen to that one. But specifically, Scotty Beam in 1985. Those are the two songs that I really rocked with, and then Frank Lucas was another one. But overall album, pretty good. I don't know if I can give it a numerical rating. I don't know if I should. I don't think I want to be that guy just yet. But I think it's a good album. If you like hip hop, if you like the Pusha T types that talk about moving stuff and portraying that in different types of ways, you'll like Freddie. And Freddie's got a little bit more to say apart from that as well. But if you like a Pusha T type rapper, you'll like Freddie too. At least I would think so. So there's my review on that as well. Also, last for reviews, anime review. The Rising of the Shield Hero. Now, somebody recommended this one to me a while back, and at first I didn't want to give it the time of day. Like I could tell, obviously there was a lot of money went into it. It seemed like a pretty good, I guess, starter anime for some people. But when I started finding out that it was an isekai format, I was like, oh gosh. Like isekais just seem to be like the main thing now, and everybody wants to do an isekai, and I was like, man, I really don't want to have to go through another Sword Art Online. But and I never watched Sword Art, but I've heard a lot of stuff about it, and I've seen other isekais like what was that one? Is it wrong to try and pick up girls in a dungeon and stuff like that? Like I've watched those, and again, that one's good too. I actually did like that one. But we got isekais for days, and this is another one. I was like, man, do I really have enough time to put energy into this? So I took a risk. I shot it out. I watched it, and I gotta tell you, I was impressed. I couldn't turn away from it. And part of the reason why is because the premise of it kind of lended itself to new exploration. Because typically in the isekai, the character that comes in, he is a young budding guy who's trying to learn how the world works. Blah 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 blah. Gains skills, gains abilities, gains all this. And he eventually becomes a hero. In this one in particular, it doesn't do that. I don't think I'm really spoiling much. It happens in the first episode, so I'm not really going to go beyond the first episode with regards to the plot. But the main character, the shield guy, he jumps into the scene and people hate him. They hate him. Like they literally cannot stand this guy. At every chance, at every opportunity, they're doing everything they can to make sure that he does not succeed, and it is wild. Like it gets to a certain point, and I guess it does this job, where there are certain characters that do like really shady stuff to this cat, and you are livid, like you're angry for him. Like this dude who's thrust into a situation that he didn't really ask for, to be honest with you. He read a book, the book threw him into this world, and now here he is, and now he's got to deal with being a hated person. But the thing that I like about it is it pushes the theme of what does it really mean to be a hero? You know what I mean? Because there are some other characters here that are known as heroes in the land, and they're known as heroes in the land not really because of what they did, but just because of break it down a little bit. Again, episode 1 stuff. there are four heroes. There's the sword hero, the spear hero, the bow hero, and the shield hero. The town in which that employs these heroes really favor the sword, shield, or the sword, the spear, and the bow, but they can't stand the shield. Uh, this season doesn't really. I'm not going to get spoiler stuff, but so those three heroes get accolades, they get support, they get teams that'll join their party, they got people that'll care for them, blah 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 blah. Shield hero doesn't get jack, like doesn't get jack simply just because he's a shield hero. But you'll see in instances throughout the series where the shield hero, in spite of being hated by those people, he feels and does things to protect them. Like he'll still go. It's kind of like a Peter Parker type thing, where like some people hate Spider-Man, but Spider-Man will still protect him. Like it's a similar vibe here. Like what does it really mean to be a hero? Are you still a hero when nobody likes you? Are you still a hero when people dog your name out in the street? And the character himself wrestles with that himself, and to a certain point, he takes his own little trajectory with that about what it really means to be a hero for him. What is really worth it? Are these people even worth my time? Like what am I doing all of this for? And like you see him kind of wrestle and fight with that, and fight with the fact that he is under no influence of his own. It starts into a situation that he didn't call for, and I like that narrative. I like that journey. I like him developing the relationship with his party as he learns, as he eventually grows. And again, even the way he developed his party was like on the outside looking in, it looks wild, and it is like how he recruited some of these people. But like just how naturally, I guess, those relationships progress and they turn from being just a means to an end to now being people that he cares for. It's just like it's again it's that if it's like if a real life person, I know it sounds crazy, but it's like if a real life person ended up becoming into got thrown into this type of a world, like how would they respond being treated that way? And you see the main character have some really human moments, and I like that idea of it. So even though it is an isekai format, it isn't your traditional isekai. It kind of flips a couple of their typical tropes on its head and does it well. It doesn't just do it for the sake of doing it. It does it well, and so I have really good marks for Rising the Shield Hero. I'm looking forward to the second season, so I would encourage you guys, if you want to, go ahead and check that out. And this is the last one. I'll make this the last one. So, Attack on Titan is getting its last season. And it is crazy. I wish I had the visual I can show you. I got the link in the description. I'll post it after, if it's not there already, that you can look at and see for yourself. But man, the trailer for the last season is pretty hot. It's pretty hot. And the studio that's doing it is a studio called Mappa, which I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mappa. They made things like Zombieland Saga. What are some other ones that they made? Let me look it up real fast. Studio Mappa. They made, I know that one for a fact because that's an anime I'm watching. Another good one, really funny. Really funny. But they made things like that. They made The God of High School, which I haven't checked out yet. I still want to watch that one. They made Hajime no Ippo Rising. That already had me perking my ears because I loved Hajime no Ippo. What else? He made Garo, Crimson Moon, Days, You're on Ice, Rage of Bahamut, Virgin Soul. I'm not quite sure what that one is. Kakeguri, Compulsive Gambler. They made Kakeguri. Ooh, I didn't even know that either. I'll tell you what, Studio Mappa is becoming my new madhouse because they made a lot of stuff that I like. And they made Kakeguri again. They made a second one. They made stuff like that. They basically what I'm saying. They're going to be making Jujutsu Kaisen, which again I'm all about that. So yeah, they are a pretty accredited studio apparently that has watched products that I personally have watched. I'm looking at this favorably. I think that it's going to look pretty good. I think that this last season's going to wrap up. Now, again, Damon Bennett fell off with the Attack on Titan anime, but he has been reading the manga, and if this is the last season, and if they touch on any of the stuff that they did in the manga, I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna be happy. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited. I'll just say that I'm excited. I can't remember what the release date was. It's probably in the trailer, but Studio Map is working on it. Reliable Studio. Love the work that they do. Attack on Titan. When I was watching the anime, really good anime. I think I watched the first season. That's what happened. I watched the first season, and then I fell off, and I just never came back to it. I got interested in some other things. Started watching different mangas. Started reading different mangas. Started watching different animes. And so I just kind of never came back to it. Apparently, I need to go back to it because I looked at some of them visuals, boy, and ooh, oh my gosh, it looks hot. It looks hot, and so there's a part of me that wants to go back and start checking. So I'll probably go back and check out some of the other seasons. Probably give my opinion on those later. But yeah, so that's it for the podcast for today. Apologies for some of the mix-ups, some stuff. With the audio, I know there was a particular part because my daughter was cooking, so you guys might have been distracted by some of the noise that she was making. I apologize for that. But overall, hopefully you guys picked up some good stuff. If you have any opinions, if you have anything you'd like to share, if you have any resources that you'd like to give me to help educate me on some of those particular issues, please feel free to do so. Always open to that because, as I say, I got my opinion, but I might be wrong, and I'm open to that. So apart from that, I will be doing this again next week. I figure, honestly, it's because of the way my weeks have been going, just a little bit of FYI, it's probably going to look more like Wednesday or Thursday when I'll be doing these lives. But you can the thing that probably be the most consistent will be the Friday the Friday posting of the videos when they become available, because YouTube does this funny thing with these live premieres where they'll have a tendency to take a little while to publish, which I guess makes sense because they got to process the video. But I will do, if they don't post it, I will at least try. I will try and post it on Facebook. I'll try and post it on Twitter if it doesn't show up on Friday. But just expect it to show up. I'll just say that. And then with regards to my periscopes will come out sporadically. They won't be consistent. I just with what's going on in my life right now and the schedule I got, I'm not gonna be able to do that consistently, unfortunately. But I will do those occasionally, just kind of give you guys updates on what's going on and just talk about some different stuff. Also, what else was I gonna say? Dang it, I had to deal with. Oh man, the podcast. So the audio podcast. So I do a strictly audio podcast, and I post this broadcast here on there. I post those as well. I post those the day that I do them. So you guys will, if you guys missed the podcast today, I'll be posting it on SoundCloud later on. I'll post a link to it so you guys can get access to it. But I will be doing those there'll be a rotation. So what I mean to say is that I'll post episode 3 tonight, but that means episode 2 will be gone. Like, it'll be gone. I do that for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm already spending enough money as it is, so I can't afford to spend more money on the resources that will be necessary to make them all available. And also, I'm just kind of keeping an archive of my stuff. So if you guys need them or want them, I can post them later on via Mediafire. I can share them to you guys directly. Just feel free to either comment below or something like that, and I'll just give you guys the previous episodes. Because I need to figure out a different way to distribute them, because Podbean, although I like Podbean, it's a similar thing. Like, you can only do it but so much with so much material. So, and I do long form podcasts, so there's that. So yeah, that's the show. Thank you guys for those of you who watched. Appreciate you guys tuning in and checking it out. Like I said, the videos will be posted up later. You guys can check them out there. If there's anything you guys want me to talk about, please feel free to send a comment. Let me know. Hey, Damon, this popped up. Check this out. I'll probably put my Twitter handle on here. I'll put my Twitter handle on here as well, so you guys can contact me that way, or my Instagram if you want to do that as well. To send me some stuff like, hey, guys, hey, check this out. What do you think about this? Has this popped up? This is crazy. This is cool. I'd be more than willing to do that. I love that type of stuff. And like I said again before, if you guys are wrong, if you guys believe that some of my opinions are wrong, please feel free to reach out to me personally and show me why I'm wrong. Yeah. So that's all I got for today. See you guys again next week. Take care of yourselves. Again, thank you guys for sticking with me there today in particular. I know it was an interesting time, but we made it. All right, y'all. Peace.